It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films on November 20th, 1998. Now, originally we had 8 movies to look at, but I couldn't find anything for the last film that we had here, Storefront Hitchcock, which is a Jonathan Demme documentary. There's music footage I could use, but I don't want to deal with any copyright problems, so mostly because I haven't seen the movie, I'm going to hold off on that one here, but we still have 7 movies to look at, notable movies, I should say. Starting off with, right at the top, the biggest new release of the weekend was a notable release, and that is the Rugrats movie. Of course, I don't really need to tell you who the Rugrats are. I think no matter what age you are, you have a good idea of who they are, but this was the big feature film debut for them, and this is a story where you have Tommy facing responsibilities with a new baby brother being born, and Dill. As with all newborns, the child becomes a bane to Tommy and the rest of the gang, as well as Tommy's parents, honestly. Even Phil and Will don't get along with him, so they decide to return Dill where he came from, the hospital, but they end up getting lost, really lost, and getting into an adventure where they end up in the forest. They have to deal with all the elements, including a group of monkeys in a circus, a Wolverine that's after them, and it's just a lot of crazy things happening in a big adventure. This is kind of the textbook definition of what you do for a big screen adventure. You basically take these characters outside of their environment and into this much bigger, grander adventure. And this film has a lot of notable firsts to it. It's the first animated feature from Nickelodeon. You could tell right away if you saw this in theaters because you got a cat dog short that was pretty clearly made for theaters. Sadly, it has not been officially released on DVD or video. In fact, when the Rugrats movie came out, they actually took an episode from the Cat Dog TV show instead of actually putting the short on there, which still baffles me to this day why that has not gotten a proper release. But it was the first movie, of course, based on a Nicktoon. Even though Nickelodeon had plans to do a couple movies with 20th Century Fox for Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy back in the 90s. And I'll talk more about that in tomorrow's Reviewing Network Live. But it was an interesting little bit of what-if history. If those films had gotten made, these movies would probably be under the Disney label right now. But most notably, among all the firsts that this movie has, another major first for this film was that it was the first non-Disney animated film to make over $100 million domestically. So that's, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs have been out in theaters for over 60 years at this point, and no other animated film outside of Disney made over $100 million until this movie did. I mean, this was back before computer animation was the norm, so DreamWorks was not the big name that it was now. You didn't have Illumination, you didn't have Blue Sky, you didn't even have Warner Brothers' current animation department that couldn't make a film that was successful at the time, but it took the Rugrats of all things, to cross $100 million. And Disney, honestly, considering the history that they've had with competition and other studios trying to do whatever it takes to make sure that people go see their movies over this animated films, they didn't really do a whole lot with this particular movie, at least not. Mostly because I think it was because they'd have a movie coming out a couple days later, which we'll get to in just a little bit. And the reason why the Rugrats movie was a success was because it came at the right time. I mean, Rugrats was still popular in the 90s. The show had just come back after a couple of years off the air. It was still a big hit for Nickelodeon, so needless to say, it was still a massive success. And like I said, as far as the movie itself goes, it follows the typical structure for a big screen adaptation like this. Have these characters go on a grander, bigger scale adventure than what they're used to, keep a lot of the charm from the original show so that people can stick with it, and the movie definitely does have that. It definitely keeps a lot of the charm and enjoyment of the original series, while even not being afraid to go for a little bit more intense scenes in here than you would think. Like, there were some moments in here that I was just kind of like, that's pretty grim, especially considering that these are babies, so they're not afraid to have this edge that they can bring into this film, and I thought they did a pretty good job with it. There are notable downsides to the film. The animation is surprisingly much bleaker than it is in the original cartoon. Like, they're trying to go for kind of more of a realistic animation style to it for these characters from the first movie. It's both kind of a negative and a positive, and for one instance, yeah, it looks much better than the TV show, but at the same time, it does feel off, and there are way too many moments and characters that have no purpose to the plot whatsoever. It's like, there's an entire pointless sequence with these circus monkeys that get lost in the woods, start attacking the babies, and they serve no purpose except to just be one of the threats they face in the movie. Kind of like the Wolverine. There's no reason for him to be in the movie except to just be a threat. Like, stuff like this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it doesn't really contribute to anything except to move the story along. But for the most part, the movie does its job pretty well. I think it's a decent feature film adaptation of the show, upping the animation style a little bit as well as the adventure aspect. It still keeps the charm of the original series in full, and It certainly isn't the best Rugrats movie, but it came out at the right time. It was a film that I think a lot of people really got invested into, myself included, because I was a big fan of the show at the time. Still am, but take it for what it is, and I think you'll enjoy it for what it is. There certainly are a lot better movies from the Rugrats that we'll definitely get into in the years to come. So that's the Rugrats movie. So let's go ahead and move on to the other big new release this weekend, and that is Will Smith and Gene Hackman in Enemy of the State. As the trailer indicates, this is a Jerry Bruckheimer production, also directed by Tony Scott, and also features Will Smith, who had just come off of 2 blockbuster films at that point, Independence Day, and also the Men in Black, and also Bad Boys as well. So his star power is pretty much very much in effect here. And you basically have a story where you have a group of corrupt NSA agents conspiring to kill a congressman, and the cover-up that ensures after a tape of the murder ends up in the possession of an unsuspecting lawyer, the lawyer being played by Will Smith. You see that Jason Lee is the guy that actually gives him the tape in the scene there. And it's a really good movie. It's definitely not one of the best Tony Scott films, but Tony Scott makes a lot of good movies overall. The style of this movie really is top-notch, and it helps that you have a guy like Will Smith working off of these actors very well. You have, Gene Hackman, Jon Voight, Lisa Bonet, Gabriel Byrne, Tom Sizemore, Seth Green, Regina King, Jason Lee, Scott Conn, Jake Busey, Barry Pepper, Jack Black, Lauren Dean. I mean, there's a phenomenal cast in here. You could say that there's a lot of parallels to something like a North by Northwest. It has it feels like kind of a modern day version of a North by Northwest sort of. Like there's a lot of moments in there where you feel like that they took a lot of inspiration from that film. And the movie does a very good job with it. The writing overall is very good. The action sequences are top-notch. The direction overall is very good. It's a really solid film. I really enjoyed it a whole lot. It's one of Will Smith's more underrated films as a whole. But it definitely is a film that I think deserves a lot more attention compared to some of his other more prevalent works. It's a really good film. I highly recommend checking it out. Enemy of the State, really good film. Definitely check it out. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Woody Allen's latest film, Celebrity. So this is one of Woody Allen's films that does not get the respect that it probably thought it deserved, and once you see the film, you can actually see why it's sometimes often considered to be one of Woody Allen's worst movies, and I cannot blame him for that. You have Kenneth Branagh playing this unsuccessful novelist turned travel writer who immerses himself in celebrity journalism following a midlife crisis and a subsequent divorce from his wife, played by Judy Davis. He stumbles his way through professional encounters and sexual escapades with performers, models, other people in the world of entertainment, and he increasingly questions his purpose in life, and he has all these different situations going on here. It's a really big cast overall here. Branagh, Davis, we see Winona Ryder, Leonardo DiCaprio, Melanie Griffith, Famke Janssen, Joe Mantegna, Charlize Theron, Gretchen Mol, Michael Lerner, Bebe Neuwirth, J.K. Simmons, Dylan Baker, Deborah Messing, Allison Janney. There's a great cast in this film. Just bad execution overall. It's a film that you really can't tell what the heck Woody Allen was trying to do with this film. And you have a mind like Kenneth Branagh. I mean, Kenneth Branagh will make anything worth it because you could tell that this guy has a heart that he likes to put into every film that he's done. Case in point, what he's done with the Hercule Poirot movies. But I think because he didn't have complete control over this project, this film really kind of suffers because you have two different visions coming together here: Woody Allen's vision and Kenneth Branagh's vision. And honestly, these two visions don't really mesh well together unless you have a really good script that can make it work off of this. But it's got a couple of decent, funny moments here and there, but it's one of those films that whenever you hear anybody talk about one of Woody Allen's worst movies, this one's definitely probably one of them, if not the most famous one. So that is Celebrity. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is a limited release of Disney's newest animated feature from the creators of Toy Story. This is A Bug's Life. So we talked about Ants a couple of weeks ago. Ants and A Bug's Life, of course, were part of this big war between Jeffrey Katzenberg at DreamWorks and Disney and the people at Pixar, because the belief was that both of these movies were made at the same time, although technically this film was being made well before then, because this film started production in 1995, and the Ants were more redesigned to be more appealing. And Pixar's animation unit employed technical innovations for this particular film to give this film a little bit of an edge over Ants. And while I said Ants was the much better film, A Bug's Life is still a really good film too. But yeah, you could definitely tell there's a lot of similarities between both of these movies. But I think A Bug's Life still is a solidly made film. It's a fun, enjoyable movie. I think the animation overall is very well done. The characters are a ton of fun to watch, too. They have great voice actors: Dave Foley, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Kevin Spacey, Phyllis Diller, not Jason Alexander, Dennis Leary, John Ratzenberger, of course, Bonnie Hunt. There's a great cast involved in this film. And, yeah, the story itself is very predictable. It's basically the Three Amigos. I mean, it's literally that same plot that we saw in the Three Amigos. We get those lazy cliches like the liar reveal, among many other things, and it really doesn't do anything new or creative with it, honestly. Plus, when you really look at some of the CG in this movie, it really does not hold up after all these years. Like, the rain in particular, like, really looks fake compared to what Pixar is able to do nowadays. Even the bird looks more fake than the fake bird that they were actually trying to use in this movie. Like, that just says a whole lot about how the animation overall has changed in the 25 years since this movie's come out. But, yeah, like I said, it's not a bad movie. Far from it. I think it is still a competently made film. It's an overall enjoyable movie, but if you're going to ask me to choose between this and Ants, I gotta say Ants is the much better movie overall. I like this movie, but Ants, I think, just had more funnier moments to it, had more of an edge to it. I thought it was the much better film. Yeah, that may have started production well after they had started working on this, but they made a much better movie out of it than I think A Bug's Life did. But A Bug's Life isn't a bad film. I need to specify that. Bug's Life is not a bad film. So that's A Bug's Life. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Waking Ned Divine. I guess Waking Ned if you're not living in the United States. It seems weird that they did that, because like it's called Waking Ned Divine here, and you think that'd be a full title in other countries, but no, it's only here. But if you go somewhere else, it's called Waking Ned. But the basic story is that you have the lucky winner of a national lottery, who's Ned Divine. So taken by his good fortune that he now can't be waked because he died from the shock of it, news of the win spreads quickly in the scenic little Irish village of Tullymore, but not the secret news of Ned's demise, with the lottery offices closing in to confirm the prize claimed by the deceased Divine. Ned's closest friends scheme to keep the prize money close to home in memory of Ned, of course, but as the plot turns humorously, they learn it is harder to keep such a secret in a small town. And this is directed by Kirk Jones, and Kirk Jones he's been a decent director over the last couple of years. This was the first movie he ever did. He did Nanny McPhee, which is not a bad film. I like Everybody's Fine, which had Robert De Niro, Kate Beckinsale, and Sam Rockwell in it. A very underrated film. But then he did What to Expect When You're Expecting, and then he followed that up with My Big Fat Greek Wedding too. So, needless to say, his directing career is a very mixed bag, but this is probably one of his best-known films, and it features a great performance by Ian Brenneman, David Kelly, Fiona Flanagan. Just a really good cast overall here. A nice, quiet film. Like, not a whole lot really happens in here, even though a lot does happen. Like, it manages to keep the tones very well here. It balances out the comedy and dramatic elements very well here. And for a film like this, it's a very good film. It's a very underrated little film that kind of fits alongside other lesser films of this similar type. Like stuff like, things like Local Hero, or even something like The Full Monty, or something like the Richard Curtis movies, the old Richard Curtis movies of the 90s. But it's a fun little film. It's a good film overall that works with its great performances and great visuals, like a great look of the Isle of Man. I mean, it's a really good film. It's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it already. Waking Ned Divine, definitely worth a watch. So on to the next movie, and that is Central Station. And I have never seen it, so I can't tell you much about it. It's a story about a young boy's friendship with a jaded middle-aged woman. The woman being played by Fernando Montenegro, and it's really all I got for you. I've never even heard of this movie, so I don't know if it's any good or not, but it's got some good critical reviews. It's highly acclaimed. It's been called one of the 100 best films of world cinema, so that's pretty much all I know about that one. So that is Central Station. So on to the last movie we have here, Savior. So you have a movie centering around a U.S. mercenary played by Dennis Quaid, who is escorting a Bosnian Serb woman played by, I believe it's Natasha Kinski, and her newborn child to a United Nations safe zone during the Bosnian War. And it's produced by Oliver Stone, came out in 1998, and that's, again, really all I know about the film, except it also has Stellan Skarsgård among the cast. Doesn't look like it has the best reviews overall, so honestly, it could not be. It probably isn't that great of a film overall. So I don't know. I haven't seen the film, so I can't really say if it's any good or not. So that is Savior. And so we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We'll wrap up November on the next episode, looking at Thanksgiving weekend with with 4 notable films. Babe Pig in the City. We also have Drew Barrymore and Luke Wilson in Home Fries, Jerry Springer in Ringmaster, and the star-studded Very Bad Things from director Peter Berg. So 4 movies to look at, and we'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the place on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys next time for the next video. So until the next time I see you, I always keep forgetting to do this. Hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So now I will tell you to thank you for watching, and I will see you guys for the next video. So until then, as always, take care.